Tomorrow, the Senate will hold a secret vote for the next Senate Majority Leader, and they're choosing between John Thune, John Cornyn, and Rick Scott. And it's a recent piece on Blaze News that argues that Senator Rick Scott is the best choice to turn Trump's mandate into reality. So here to discuss is Clint Brown. He's the president of American Path. So do you think that Rick Scott has a fighting chance? He might be the one that we would all prefer, but what are the odds that we would actually see Rick Scott coming into power here?
That's a great question, Jill. Nobody knows the whip count. Not even the candidates know the whip count. I've talked to surrogates and staffers for all of the candidates, and everybody thinks that they have 20 votes, something like that, which is mathematically impossible. So it's really interesting to see that they all sort of think they have it, because that means they're having conversations with members who are showing some interest but not committing. So it's anybody's guess who could get it. I do think Rick Scott stands a fighting chance. I think really all three candidates stand a fighting chance.
Clint, I just am so happy to have you on, someone who knows stuff about stuff in the midst of the swamp. It's great. Can you explain a little bit about why it's so hard? I mean, I think people are still struggling to understand why it's so hard to get the sort of Republican that, most of our audience feels represents them in this position. And you can see the frustration breaking out all over online now as people realize that it's very difficult to find a different sort of representative, a different sort of leader in the Senate for some reason.
Yeah, well, thanks, Matt. I try to know something about something. I would say it comes down to this is an election about how the Senate operates, and it's all very personal. There are only 53 Republican senators. They all know each other. They have to work together every day. So that is one element, that it's personal, and it's about how the place operates on a personal level between members. Imagine your coworker is trying to get a position at work, and you all get to decide if he gets that position, and then you have to work together after. So that plays into it. The other thing is the Republican conference isn't necessarily aligned with the MAGA mandate, with where the voters are right now. Some of them have been elected decades ago, and they are not up to speed with where the people are. So they take a different perspective on it. One thing I'll tell you is that just a few days before the election, Senator Mitch McConnell gave a quote to a reporter saying that he would probably spend more time fighting Republicans than Democrats after the election. And that gives you a sense of what some of the more establishment Republicans are thinking. I think he speaks for a number of them, and that's why they won't necessarily jump at the opportunity to vote for a MAGA America First candidate.
Well, Clint, you say that, and it makes me smile because this afternoon, Mitch McConnell came out and he was taking credit for Republicans taking control of the Senate. He said, quote, "I was proud to help return a Republican majority to the Senate and thrilled to welcome some of the newest GOP senators to the Capitol." Now, he's famously out there like holding the purse strings, not allowing some of the money to go to candidates that he didn't like. I mean, is this Mitch just trying to take like one final victory lap here?
Oh, naturally, he's taking credit for all of it. It's pretty clear that Trump delivered this win. Republicans did not win in 22 when Trump wasn't on the ballot. And that's just hard evidence that it's not him. And of course, it's easy to take credit for the candidates that won. But to your point, Jill, they say, oh, those candidates who didn't win could have never won. Carrie Lake could have never won. That's why we didn't invest money in her. Rather than asking the question of what would happen if you had invested some of your massive amount of campaign money in Carrie Lake, would she have gone over the finish line? They never look at it from that perspective. They only look at it from the perspective of how can they take credit.
So, I mean, we're looking at the possibility that the Senate falls back into, let's call it McConnellism, shortly. Yes. I don't know how much, patience there's going to be for that, both at the White House and obviously among the American people. Do you have thoughts about the chances here and what might happen over the course of the next few years?
Oh, very much so. That gets into the heart of this battle. The battle is resolving the disagreements within the Republican Party, and the Senate is an institution designed to resolve disagreements. That is its purpose. So as we have this Republican infighting, we're going to see that be the biggest obstacle to accomplishing President Trump's agenda. It's going to be Republicans fighting them. And there's certain changes that can be made in the way the Senate operates to prevent that, such as having an amendment process. For the majority of his time in leadership, McConnell has blocked senators from offering amendments. How can you resolve disagreements about legislation if you can't put words on paper and vote on it? So that's what we're going to see. And what happens when you do that? If you can't vote on it in public on the Senate floor, it happens in a back room. Because how else do you get enough votes to pass the bill if you can't make little tweaks here and there to earn the support of your colleagues in the Senate? You do it in a back room. What happens in a back room? A few Republicans get together with a few Democrats. The bill includes a ton of Democrat priorities, maybe one or two MAGA priorities, and then they pass it, and we get a mostly Democrat government. So this is their plan for Democrats and the Uniparty to control the U.S. government. Put it right in the Senate, let them take over the backroom negotiations, put in their priorities, and give a head pat to the America First agenda. That has to change. That's why they're having this battle right now about how the Senate operates. A number of senators, including Senator Mike Lee, Ron Johnson, Rick Scott, they've been great at articulating a vision for how the Senate should operate in a way to prevent that. And I was very pleased to see today, even Senator John Cornyn released a letter. Basically, it sounded like it was written by Mike Lee in a way. There were a lot of things in that letter that would have been very pleasing to conservatives. So what you might consider more center Republican, old school Republican, they're moving in the direction of the conservatives who want to see the America First agenda enacted in Congress.
Well, Clint, I want to transition over now to Trump's administration and his transition team. I want just the 50,000-foot view that you have seen from what has played out in this last week.
It seems like they're moving fast to get people in positions. It seems like they have a good plan of who they want where. And I've seen that there's still a lot of people deciding. There are a lot of people sort of lobbying, angling for their positions in the administration. But they're organized. That's the key. There is an organized level to it. I've been pleased to see Elon Musk down at Mar-a-Lago bringing some of his Department of Government Efficiency perspective to this conversation. And I know that the transition team has done a great job. You know, we haven't seen really a ton of leaks before this week, and some of those leaks may be strategic by different people who are either angling for a position, or maybe the Trump transition wants to float names out there to see how the base reacts to that. But it's incredible that we haven't seen those kind of leaks until this week. And I wouldn't even knock them for the leaks this week, because there may be a strategic reason for those leaks. So I've been very impressed with their efficiency. I've been impressed to see the people who are involved, and I'm rooting for them. I hope it works out well. It's going to really matter for the Senate. The Senate confirms all the personnel, and so they need to start engaging with the Senate on that. So as soon as they know who the next leader is, they can get into that process and move very quickly to start confirming Trump noms.
All right, Clint. So last 60 seconds we have with you. I have two questions. One of them is self-indulgent. One of them is not. I want to know who, if you have a person in particular that you would really like to see in charge of some part of the government. And number two, particularly Eric Prince, I've been wondering, because I haven't really heard his name around anything particular necessarily publicly, but it sure seems like he would fit in somewhere. I wonder if you have thoughts about him.
You know, actually, Matt, you read my mind. It's pretty impressive. So I think Eric Prince should certainly be a part of this administration. There's a place for him. He has a real world strategic tactical perspective on how to make America great on a world stage, how to get out of global conflicts without showing weakness. He's the person who can figure out from the strategic words on paper, policy paper, to actually putting boots on the ground. What do you do? So I'd love to see him involved, maybe at CIA, as the director of the CIA, something like that, Department of Defense. Really, he's going to be an asset wherever he goes. It would be absolutely wild to leave an asset like Eric Prince sitting on the sidelines. So I hope that they include him in some way in the next Trump administration.